Hi, Gavin. Thanks for asking me how I'm experiencing your coaching program. So I'm speaking first off professionally. Professionally, I was the heir to a music company that had been in the South African marketplace for 35 years before I laid hands on it. And there was a massive amount of social capital, um, experiential capital, and a massive knowledge base behind me before I stepped in. And so I hit a very critical place in my business, and that critical place that I hit in my business meant critical place in my finance. It meant critical relationships with my business associates, up to and including my bank, the person responsible for my levy at my property. Every single person in my network was then impacted by what was happening in my business, and then of course my family was impacted really badly. All of it was avoidable, absolutely avoidable. So I look at what I could have done differently, and that's a question you always ask in your coaching. This is how you're doing something, or this is how you've done something. This is part of your sensitivity test. And what would your life look like if you'd done things differently? So this is what my life would look like if I had responded to the crash in my business differently. But I think the biggest thing I can say about it is that if I had met you 5 years ago, or 7 years ago maybe even, my entire life would have been completely different. If I'd had your insights into competition, it would have been a whole different ballgame. I wouldn't have been threatened by my competition, and my competition wouldn't have been threatened by me. And the latter statement's probably most important. My competition wouldn't have been threatened by me, and that would have saved my life. So if I'd met you 7 years ago, I wouldn't have lost the company. That's for sure. That is for sure. First of all, I wouldn't have been afraid of my debt. I would have leveraged my debt. And at that time, I still had a good enough relationship with my bank for that to even work. Whereas obviously now I don't. But it made a huge amount of sense to me now that I didn't need to let that company go. And it affected a lot of people that I'd let it go, and I didn't need to let them go. So if I had insights into the human person, into the industry itself, into the concept of staging, which is critical for a music company, and into the concept of acute recognition and representation of the artist, there's not a way the company would have gone down. So here's the first big difference. If you'd been around, you would have shown me the assets that I couldn't see. And that's part of your coaching that I'm experiencing constantly, is that you're searching constantly for the things inside of the person that they don't see themselves, because it's very hard to look inside yourself and identify skills and talents, intuitions, even emotions, objectively. So it was absolutely mind-blowing for me that in my carnage you could see the remnants of whatever wreckage of skills and talents that there were, not only in my own person, but now in my broader industry. It's a big question, because the coaching experience isn't a binary experience. It's really multidimensional, and it traverses every aspect of your life, your personality, your circumstances. Coaching is not just a program, into which you can slot certain things and certain ideas will come out of it. If I had your insights 7 years ago on relationship building and on galvanizing trust and on coming back from fighting with people and on restoring and repairing relationship. There is not a way the company would have gone down, and I would have had the social capital to still stay in the game instead of being drowned out by people that were just brutally competitive. If I'd been wise enough to be sure that my competition wasn't threatened by me, it would have saved my child's life too. So those were huge insights that came out of your coaching. So what's been really, really, really the biggest take home for me, as much as you've impacted on my self-esteem, and you've done that not by giving me some kind of flaky sense of self or some puffed up type of ego, but by recognizing the things about me that can work, and by recognizing very, 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 very brutally the things that don't work. That's been more self-building. I don't want to say self-esteem building, but that's been more building of the self than anything else, because you can't just believe that the parts of you that are great. You have got to understand the parts of you that are failing you. So through this coaching experience, I learned that having a solid self-esteem really means having an objective view of yourself, not having a puffed up ego. It's not being positive all the time and thinking that the whole world's just great and you know, walk in blind faith with rose-colored glasses through the third ring of hell. Having a solid self-esteem means having a really real concept of what you're doing that doesn't work for you and doesn't work for the people in your life. And sometimes it's painful because you're hurting people with what you do, or you're hurting yourself with what you do. So it's not an easy walk, but it is absolutely vital, because you're going to have to come into a space where you interface with people that are going to take that and take you on at that level. So you'd found this little space of light, in this case it was technology, and said, okay, let's exercise the light and let's see what happens when we shine that light on everything else, and slowly but surely everything else came back to play. And that started with a very simple observation that you made about me. You asked, what can you do? And I said, well, I can do online, digital, everything. You didn't really consider it a skill at all. Nevertheless, you put the skill to work. And then once you had it in motion, and once you started to see how this thing would play out, and simultaneous to that, how my personality was interfacing with what I did, you were able to give me a strategy out of my mess that I couldn't architect that for myself, because I simply didn't have that perspective. Slowly but surely I could see the great path I'd walked in a completely different way. At the place where my life was in carnage, of course it was too late. If I had this insight 7 years ago, there were millions of things that wouldn't have happened. There was a whole lot of suffering that would have been avoided, and most especially for my child. So this is difficult stuff to relate back, but the biggest take home for me now is that even after the fact, it's redeemable. Now I can look back at my industry and I see fields of gold. Absolutely. Things that I hadn't recognized because I was not able to see them in myself, maybe, and I wasn't looking for them in other people. And now I just see this massive, massive open vista of talent, creative energy, passion, and this fertile space into which to build. So, and I want to say to any woman that gets into a coaching relationship with you, that it is fundamental work that you do, and it's strategic, practical work that you do. Don't think that coaching is all about what time you get up in the morning and how many times you put a sticky note on your mirror to tell you how great you are, and how you stay positive by brainwashing yourself into a happy days type of mentality. And that's not what coaching is at all. Coaching is equipping you at the deepest level to be able to navigate the world that you want to navigate and make your path, carve your way to your goal, and has nothing to do with anything else. And there is a lot of work to be done around that. It traverses every aspect of your life. So it certainly traverses your emotional life, traverses your personality, your inclinations, your dreams. Sometimes your dreams just aren't possible, and that's something that obviously, you'd have to accept. If your dream is to be a lizard and it's not possible, it's not possible. But pretty much everything outside of that has got a strategic road. Most people even have a predefined road towards their success. And it's a matter of repositioning your own resources, because you probably have more of them than you ever think. So you can get yourself back to that place. And if you are inadvertently creating a perception, heaven forbid, that is not a reflection of your intent, you then have the power to change it. Gavin gives you the tools to reconfigure that so that you are sending the right message to the right people. And while all of this has taken place in the period of 2 months, and I won't say I'm nearly where I want to be in terms of achieving the spaces and places that will enable me to take my life back at some level from where I am now, I can guarantee you that if you go through this process before the shit hits your fan, you will not regret it. You will never look back. If I could have done this 7 years ago, everything about my life and future would have been different.